Okay, this all started with my mother's tiller, and she had removed the carburetor in order to clean it. And as happens with old machinery sometimes, this bolt right here was broken off. And when I got the broken bolt out, I noticed that the gasket was shot. And so this is a photograph of the gasket surface once it has been cleaned and the bolt removed. And if we don't want to wait a whole bunch of time for a gasket to get here in the mail, a lot of times we'll choose to make our own, so I keep some generic gasket material around. This is from Felpro. I like Felpro gaskets. I bought this on Amazon, but you can get gasket material at your farm store, AutoZone, wherever you want. And if there's anything left of your old gasket, you can trace it. So just lay your old gasket or whatever you're using for a pattern on the new gasket material. Trace it out. Easy peasy. Then I keep a set of these hollow punches handy for doing things like this. Use my grandpa's hammer and then make a nice clean hole. Then I grab a smaller one and do the inside corners of this hole, the fillets. Then I finish it off with this utility knife. Then I go around the outside with a pair of scissors. And this makes a very acceptable gasket. But what if I want to make a whole bunch of gaskets? Or what if I'm really anal retentive and I want to make a perfect gasket? Or what if I want to be able to make one of these gaskets quickly anytime I want? Or what if I don't have an old gasket that I can trace? Well, I just take a piece of computer paper and a crayon. You can steal one from your kid. He won't cry for very long. And I make a rubbing. Now this is a gasket that I made before I realized that the top and bottom holes aren't used on this model. So we'll go ahead and start a new project, and I'll import this image where I scan the rubbing into the computer with a flatbed scanner. You could also just scan the old gasket if you have it. Now the flatbed scanner will give you an image that's true to scale in 2 dimensions. And you can draw right on top of it. Software I'm using here is called Lightburn, by the way, and I'm not affiliated. So I grab my circle tool and I make a first circle, and then I can reposition it wherever I want. And then I can just hit Control D and duplicate it and drag it over to the right, and I'll have an identical size hole. And you can zoom way in and place it wherever you want. I'm sure your rubbing looks better than mine. This was pretty quick and dirty, but it worked just fine. Then I grab the rectangle tool, make the rectangular center hole, and once I get it right where I want it, then I'll go ahead and fillet the corners. Then I grab the offset tool, offset that square. Then if you hold down shift, you can select both circles at once and then use the offset tool again. Then I hold down shift so I can select all 3 outer shapes. And then I use the Boolean combine command to make them one. Then I just delete the image of the rubbing. Just click on it and then hit delete. And that's enough to make a gasket. But I like to grab this rectangle tool and square up these ears. So just make a rectangle and then stretch it until it's tangent to the outer circle. and do the same thing on the right hand side. And that'll get rid of these undercuts. And you can make these as fancy as you want. Use the Boolean combine again. And that's good enough for me. Just save it to a flash drive and take it to a laser. And you just select the file. Now this is a 100-watt CO2 laser. It's just a generic Chinese laser, hobby laser. And I'm running about 75% power and about 20 inches per minute. And it cuts out a perfect gasket. And I'll be the first to admit that that was a lot of work. But now the work is done and I can have this gasket quickly and easily anytime I wanted to. Working industrial maintenance, I know there's a lot of times when this would have been really handy to have, because you don't want to stock hundreds of gaskets that you seldom use. So you could stock gasket material and make your own gaskets. And then every time you made a gasket, you could save the file and have it on file forever. And that would be really convenient. Especially when you can't wait several days to get a gasket in the mail. I'd also like to try this with a plotter like a Cricut Maker. So maybe next time.